Before I came here, it was very difficult to envision what life would be like on grounds. You know, the transition, you could think about it all you want, but it's not the same when you get here. Um, all I have to say is that I had a lot of support from my own department, from the university. There were a lot of orientations for different things, introductions to libraries, visits to campus. So the first few weeks were essential in establishing, like a better understanding of the space. And I think that a lot, I'm very thankful to those orientations for that. So you should absolutely go to each orientation that is offered to you because they're helpful. And yeah, I mean, you could also do a lot of exploring yourself. That was very fun for me at the beginning. And yeah, I would say in general, the transition was smooth. I mean, obviously, it changed countries. I left my family, my friends. So, that part was not smooth or that smooth. But in terms of adjusting to the new space and the new resources and making friends, I feel like, there's a lot that is offered to you that you could take advantage of to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And then also, we have 3 people here from Visas, which is one of the really large international oriented organizations on grounds. And then, so if one of you all, Joyce, Travis, or Maggie, right, would like to maybe give a little bit of more information about the resources Visas has for international students. I know a lot of people, when we asked for what your interests were in regards to like these Q&A sessions, a lot of people mentioned TA expectations, and I know that's something that Visas focuses on. Also, Quinn mentioned in the chat, but I just want to make sure everybody also saw it. We will be recording this session, so feel free to leave your cameras off if that's something that makes you comfortable. Also, for any questions that anyone has throughout the session, feel free to chat them or send them into the chat, and we'll address those as we go.
I can go ahead and start talking about Visas if that's okay. So Visas stands for Volunteers with International Students, Staff, Scholars, and Spouses. And it's a part of CALC, which is the Center for American English Language and Culture. So Visas offers English programming to the international community, and it's a really great opportunity to practice English in a casual and fun setting, and also practice cultural exchange and make new friends. So I can talk about one of the programs, which is our biggest program and really great for international students, especially who are just looking to make new friends and practice their English. And it's called the Language Consultants Program. It's super flexible and casual. It's 1 hour per week. And essentially you're matched with a native English speaking student and maybe one other international student. And you guys decide which time to meet so you can really cater it towards your schedule. And yeah, it's a great way to practice English conversation. You just meet for 1 hour and you can talk about whatever you want. And you can tailor the program to really suit your needs. So if you want to receive feedback for your English, you can ask your volunteer, like, hey, could you please correct my English if I make a mistake? Or if you don't, you can just, you can just have 1 hour of casual conversation. So yeah, maybe if you guys want to talk about, Maggie or Travis, the other programs.
Yeah, sure. I can speak to Visas Cafe. So I'll be running Visas Cafe next semester and next year. but it's a really casual like English conversation group. So we meet once a week. We're still deciding on the time because we realize that our international students won't just be in Charlottesville anymore. But it meets once a week, and we have really casual English conversations. I'll usually give you some topic to talk about or to go over, but you're very welcome to get into small groups and talk about whatever you want. It's really just an opportunity to make friends with thesis volunteers who will be there to facilitate conversations, and also other international students. So if you're looking for just the chillest way to introduce yourself to the UVA community, I would highly recommend Visas Cafe.
I'm going to talk about two other programs that we do, SLA and the classroom consultant programs. So what these are is this basically places volunteers into ESL classes with graduate students. For TA specifically, that's what the classroom consultants help with. So basically, like, volunteers will sit through graduate students who are presenting and working towards becoming a TA. So we get feedback on presentations throughout the year. Can everyone hear me?
It sounds a little bit static.
Can anyone hear me?
What about now? Better? Okay. All right. So what I was talking about was we have two programs, the ESLA and the classroom consultant programs. And what this does is this puts English-speaking volunteers in ESL classrooms with professors and then graduate students. Specifically for TAs, that's what the classroom consultants help with. So throughout the semester in a specific ESL class, international students working to become TAs will like do presentations and all different kinds of things. And the volunteers will give feedback and just help with their English and help with the professors. And then that's pretty much the same for the ESLA classes. It's just volunteers who are like working with the professors to help the international students and give a little bit more help in the classroom. They're both really great programs.
Thank you guys for sharing. And if anyone has any more questions about visas at any point, feel free to ask those. Moving on, maybe we can, at least we have some global greeters here with us. David, Sana, Quinn and I, as well as Yunkai are all here to help, or no, not Yunkai. We're all here to help answer your any questions you may have. But to start off, I think one of the major questions a lot of students are having now, you know, international and national, is whether to come back to Charlottesville. And so maybe anyone who has been in Charlottesville can briefly touch on what their experience has been given the current situation. I can start off. I personally will be in Charlottesville, although none of my classes so far are going to be online, which is a bit of a bummer. You know, as always, I feel like the housing situation is really, like UVA has a really good, reliable option, but once students start moving off grounds, then the lease situation is really, a lot of people sign leases early on. And so it's almost easier to not have to worry about, you know, moving back and forth And so I've decided to stay in Charlottesville. There's also, I mean, the Charlottesville community, the UVA community in Charlottesville is really dominant. And so, you know, even without a lot of classes being online, I feel like it's really certain that there will be a large UVA presence. Given that, I mean, the COVID precautions it's really, you know, you don't know how everyone's going to handle it, but I think that there are a fair amount of, like, it will be safe if you make it safe, you know, as long as you act safely, I think things will be fine. If anyone else wants to comment on their Charlottesville situation, feel free to do so.
I could go next. Okay, so my experience is a little bit different because I had to travel back to Charlottesville, you know, in the middle of all of this. And the whole travel situation, I mean, for international students, it's a daunting, you know, experience to have. And for me, it was crazy because I had to go through, you know, more than one country to get here in the middle of a global outbreak. So I feel like as long as you are sure about your choice, whether you want to pursue your classes online or if you want to come to Charlottesville, you need to be, so that is your choice, but you need to be aware of your responsibilities as well towards your own health, but the health of others. So for instance, during my trip, I did not take my mask off. Like my nose was crushed by the mask at the end of it. It was kind of bending to the left a little bit. And I was taking all the precautions. I was following guidelines, etc. So, and when I came back here, I quarantined for 14 days. I'm fine, you know. But I feel like if you want to come here, you need to be in a mindset of, you know, being responsible and not putting yourself or others in harm's way. And yeah, I feel like when it comes to housing, there are a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Things that just come up, and if you want to decide to stay here, you need to take that into consideration. Like, things change quickly and we need to adapt. I hope that wasn't too scary, but that has been our, you know, life as students, undergrads or grad. So yeah.
I'll jump in right now. Actually, for me, like most of them said, you know, it's really a person by person, case to case thing. I think at the end of the day, like, you really need to assess like how much risk you can take, and you know how much travel and how much those exhaustion you are willing to take on. Because you know some people are just more resilient than other people. Some people are just, you know, kind of created to go through those kind of hard thing, you know, being quarantined, you know, all those exhaustions of international travel. But some people are just not. And I feel like if you like just, you know, ask yourself, you feel like, you know, staying at home is the safer and, you know, the more mind calming option. I would say staying at home is also not a bad choice. But, you know, for me, I'm in Charlottesville. I've been here since the pandemic started. And from my experience, I could say, staying in Charlottesville is neither a bad choice. You know, many of you might not be in the US right now. You might, watch all the stuff on the news, seeing that 60,000 people are infected every day. But I think keep in mind is that this kind of like case number is vary by region in the country, right? It's not like Charlottesville has like several hundred every day. But yeah, like we're having a little spike in the case number recently. But I think like in terms of a smaller city, a smaller town like Charlottesville, we're relatively safe. But like the risk is everywhere, like no matter you're in a home country or in the US or anywhere, like this is a global pandemic, so there's risk associated with wherever you stay. I think like, at the end of the day is really how much precaution you are taking yourself, how much responsibility you are carrying yourself, especially like returning to grounds. Like one of my nightmare scenario would be, even though everyone's being tested, but when they come back, no one is being responsible for their action. They're partying, they're hanging out with their friend, suddenly many people get infected. That would be just a nightmare. But to prevent that thing, it really depends on the action and the choices we make as individual, right? Even coming back here doesn't mean like I think going to all the classic like normal. I would wish going to class in person as much as everyone wants to, but that could seem to be like a hard choice you had to make. And also wearing mask, even I was thinking some of my discussion there in person, I would just go wear a face shield like the medical worker in the hospital. So I think it's really come down to personal choices, and also like we have great support, you know, uh, great resources on grounds to support everyone, no matter you are here in Charlottesville or at your home country. And oh, by the way, the last thing I'll keep in mind is for many students coming from Asia, the time difference could be a thing to consider, if especially if you have synchronous classes, like the 2 o'clock class here in the US in the afternoon, that kind of means like 2 in the morning for, yeah, I see Yunkai laughing. Yeah, it's gonna be tough. Many of my friends, they're taking class back in China, which is very hard for them, I think. But I guess like when looking online on the SIS system, many of the classes in the afternoon in US time are actually asynchronous. So I guess the school is also being accommodating, and also professors individually, they will also be accommodating, I believe. Yeah.
Well, just second on the time zone. Well, at least, well, the good thing for me is I'm not in New Zealand, so that would be some kind of like 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. now. So. Sorry. So for my current experience, so I'm because of my visa issue, so a lot of friends haven't seen me for 7 months already. So I just caught the start of this pandemic in January when I get back to China. Yeah, but it's insane here as well. But the good side is at least the UA, and there are some resources that I could still have access to, for example, the VPN. So I could still do my basic research and literature research, of course, but I'm an experimental person, so that's the sad part. Yeah, and also we have that kind of group meeting every week, something like this. So it seems like still normal to me, but then, well, all that kind of visa change, that's a really stressful situation, but well, but I'm glad that everything has turned to normal now for the policy part. So that's what I feel now.
I do want to add one thing before we move on. I just thought it might be helpful to give you, since I taught a class this summer, online synchronous, I feel like I could give you a little bit of insight from the instructor's perspective. So I gave this class when I was back home in Tunisia, and my students were in the US. So the time difference was not that bad, but you know, it was pretty big. It was five hours. And you know, you don't have to worry about having the absolute perfect, pristine environment when you're having your class. Obviously, you know, some privacy would be nice, but if somebody like knocks at your door and like bursts into the room, I'm not gonna, you know, give you an F for it. It just seems like students get really flustered, and you know, they lose their concentration and they keep thinking about it, thinking that everybody now thinks that they live in a, you know, barn or something. And it's really not like that. Like your instructor is not going to be thinking about that one time your dog entered the room while we were having a lecture. So, you know, online classes need some kind of privacy, but if anything happens, that's life, you know. You can't live in an environment that's completely isolated, and we get that. So you need to be, you know, not so hard on yourself.